Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those of you in the Western Hemisphere and what hemisphere you're in the Southern Hemisphere too. I'm about to go live on Roxon. I'm just waiting for the green light from them, but you guys on YouTube get the sneak preview. So I'm just waiting for us to go live. Should only be a few moments more. I will bring us live straight into Roxon TV. Roxon TV, by the way, is this new sort of Bitcoin and global news offering. It was to some extent backed by Zappo and a man called Wences Casares, who, if you don't know who he is, then it probably means that you're relatively new to Bitcoin, or you're not a nerd like me and you like to go into the history of Bitcoin a lot. But crucially, Wences is known affectionately in Silicon Valley and in some Bitcoin circles as patient zero for Bitcoin, in the sense that he was the guy that started the Bitcoin contagion in Silicon Valley. And he orange pilled a lot of execs in Silicon Valley. This is like 15 years ago, or 13, 14 years ago now. And he is one of the guys behind Zappo Bank. And he's also helped to some extent in bootstrapping Roxon TV, which is the show which I believe is now live. So good morning, everyone, to those of you in the Western Hemisphere. Good afternoon or evening to those of you in the Eastern Hemisphere of the world. My name is Joe Nakamoto, and today we're going to be talking to you about Bitcoin. Yes, quelle surprise. We're also going to be covering some minor global events as well as some Bitcoin inner workings. And later on the show today, we will have none other than Jesse from Hashrate Up, who is our Bitcoin resident. What do we call him? We call him our Bitcoin resident expert, Bitcoin mining resident expert. He is going to be tuning in from South Africa, although he is originally from Germany. So he brings lots of different perspectives to Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. And I don't know if you can hear it in my voice today, but I do have I'm a bit run down, let's say, in every sense of the word, because on Saturday I completed my first ever Ironman, which completely destroyed me, as you can probably expect. Oh, we've got some people turning up and saying good morning. Good morning, Maxis. This is lovely to see. Hello, Jim Bob. Good morning to you, sir. Good morning, Mark Arquies Ortega. I'm really sorry if I've butchered the pronunciation of your name. How is your day going today? Good to see you, Mark. Good to see you as well. Zanoni Snowflake. I recognize you from the last live stream, particularly because you used the green hearts, which I'm a big fan of. Hello from drizzly grey Cornwall. I do love Cornwall. I'm sorry to hear it's drizzly and grey, but it does mean that when the skies are blue in Cornwall, it is just beautiful and breathtaking. If I had the money, I would probably live there. It's a great place, and you can surf all over Cornwall. I love it. How is everyone doing today? Are we enjoying the little baby bump that the Bitcoin price had? I was showing this a second earlier, but I've been offline for most of the weekend because I was attempting an Ironman, which I did manage to complete, by the way. I am now officially an Ironman, which is really cool. And I accidentally competed under the flag of Bhutan. More on that story later. Rather than competing under the flag of GB, like Great Britain, where I'm from, I competed under Bhutan. But hey ho, that's a story for another time. Do ask me the ins and outs of it if we're ever in the pub together. What I wanted to bring up first is, of course, the Bitcoin price. I'm not a big price evangelist. However, it is one of the most important metrics to look at because it basically gives an indication to the mainstream of just how popular Bitcoin is right now. And currently, Bitcoin is 2% more popular than it was yesterday. Good morning, A, as well. Hello, hello. Still beautiful in the grey. It is indeed. Oh, I haven't logged into my trading view. I'm going to be making some mistakes this morning, but we've talked about the price already. Next one is to talk to you about the mempool. Now, thank you, Bitcoin Light. I am indeed an Ironman. It is a wonderful feeling. Thank you. So I want to talk to you about the mempool. Why about the mempool or the memory pool or mempool.space? There are different implementations of ways of tracking the Bitcoin blockchain. or time chain, as Satoshi Nakamoto refers to it in the white paper. Now, I really like the mempool because it's super easy to use, super easy to interact with, and it's just generally a great tool. I sometimes read it back to front, which a lot of people get quite upset about. But, hey ho, that's all part of the fun. To flip it, you click here. No, that's not the way of flipping it. That's the way of flipping the headers upside down. But usually I flip the actual mempool itself upside down, which I can't do today, oh no, the arrow's just there. I'm just being blind. There you go. Sometimes it's nice to read it the other way around. This is how a lot of people like to do it, from left to right rather than right to left. Maybe I'm a little bit Arabic. I don't know, because they write from right to left. Now, you can see the top of the mempool, we have 919932. That is known as the block height. So today is 919,932. That's not, yeah, it is 919,932. And you can see quite a few sort of important metrics here. Firstly, the 1 sat per vbyte, or 1 Satoshi per vbyte, is the relative cost that was paid, or the average cost that was paid to be included in that block. Just below it, you have 0.20 to 151 sats per vbyte. So that is the range of prices that different people pay to get their transaction included in that block. You then have the size of the block, which is 1.7 megabytes rather. And you have the number of transactions. So here we have 3,232 transactions. You have the time at which that block was mined, which was 17 minutes ago. And finally, you have the person or people or pool that mined it. Here it is Spider Pool. Previously, we had BTC.com, and previously we had SBI Crypto. Not familiar with those guys. That's interesting. But yeah, Spider Pool and BTC.com are quite popular pools. This is all part of the sort of Bitcoin mining metrics. And one other one I wanted to show you was bitfeed.live, I believe it is. Bitfeed.live is one of the best screensavers you can look at. It was made by Mononaut, who is a fantastic account who you must follow on Nostr or Twitter or whatever your platform is of choice. And basically you can see the Bitcoin blocks being created live. It's a visualization of what's going on in the Bitcoin time chain. So here, for example, you have a transaction that's come through, and you can see that the size of that transaction is 370 bytes, which is a lot bigger than this one here, which is 196 bytes. And that's why it's represented by this bigger size. You can also see that 51 Bitcoin is being transacted there. That's £4.5 million, which is a lot of $4.5 million rather, which is a lot of money, about £5 million. How crazy is that? I just think it's quite fun to sometimes remind ourselves that Bitcoin is almost like an organism. It's almost like this, autonomous or semi-autonomous sort of body that is just constantly churning out a block every 10 minutes, regardless of whatever the rest of the world is. I just took 3 days completely offline, and the Bitcoin time chain just keeps spitting out blocks on average every 10 minutes. It's a really wonderful thing, and it's something to almost sort of fall back on and be like, this is cool. This can be an anchor. This is something that can just keep going in the background and keep be a sense of sort of stability when the rest of the world, for many people, at least for me at least, it does seem to be getting a bit more and more chaotic. Okay, my little put the joint down and get on with my day comments out the way. I want to share with you a couple of news articles that I found quite interesting today before we get on to our guest, who's called Jesse, who I'm really looking forward to talking to, and I hope you will as well. So first thing for me, this is a great news story. This is that Square, which is of course led by Jack Dorsey, they have announced their free Pay with Bitcoin signs available to 4 million businesses and merchants. I personally am going to try to get one of these, even though I don't actually sell anything physical. I just want to have some more Bitcoin stickers. And you can see they're pretty smart. Like Square has quite nice branding. And this is to sort of marry with the news that Square terminals are now making it possible for their 4 million merchants and businesses worldwide, not just in the US, to accept Bitcoin as money. Great news all round. And Android Doctor commented that today somebody's BitAxe will mine a block. That would be phenomenal, particularly if you have a BitAxe. By the way, a BitAxe is a small sort of at-home personal mining device that puts out a very small amount of hash or guesses. And they are useful tools if you're into home mining. But ultimately, the chance of getting a successful block is what? What do we think it is? Is it less or more than the chances of winning the lottery? I'm not sure. But it'd be great if someone in the comment section, for example, is able to highlight what the chances are. Do you have more chance in winning the lottery today or in mining a block with a BitAxe? Next up is Joe Calasare, who is an account that is a little bit controversial in the Bitcoin space. He sometimes triggers people and rubs people up the wrong way. This is another one that sort of is in keeping with his voice. He says, bookmark this to send to anyone claiming this cycle is just like the others. And here you can see the different prices of Bitcoin after the halving. So it's a bit of it's not an arbitrary place to draw or consider starting a price chart, but it's because a lot of people think, Arthur Hayes disagrees, but a lot of people think that when you introduce the halving, this can cause a supply shock because the number of Bitcoin created on average every 10 minutes is literally cut in half. So it went from 50 every 10 minutes to 25 to 12.5 to 6.125 to, no, sorry, 6 whatever it is, to 3 point whatever we are today. I think it's 3.125 BTC. Thank you, A. Please do look into whether or not you can get a BitAx. Using a BitAx would make more sense than a lottery. I'm particularly intrigued. But yeah, so we have the different prices after the halvings, and you can see that there is an explosion, a huge run up. That was in 2012, 2016, similar, quite a big run up. 2020, which I imagine a lot of you, or probably 90% of you watching, will have lived through this one, as that was for me when Bitcoin became more and more mainstream. It isn't mainstream, but it became a bit more. And now we have today's rather sad looking price chart after the halving last April. And you can see we've had this very, very slow trickle up and to the right. What's interesting to note is the volatility is far sort of dampened and diminished relative to previous cycles, which is a good and a bad thing, I guess. It's good in the sense that clearly this asset is maturing, and you can see that the sort of the price variety here and the volatility is declining. However, for us as people that obviously live, breathe, sleep, eat Bitcoin, we do quite like a bit of volatility. Let's be honest. It is quite fun when Bitcoin does do these tremendous pumps and, sad dumps, but it means you get cheap sats, right? So yeah, it's just one of the things I wanted to highlight and say, yeah, okay, this cycle is different. Every cycle is different. And if you do measure the Bitcoin price after each halving, it is interesting to note that there is a change in volatility, and there is a change in the way that the sort of the amount of Bitcoin being bought up is bought up. Okay, next up is some news from the UK. We do have some Brits watching today. Freddie New is a great guy who is the CEO of BHODL, which is a Bitcoin treasury company. We're going to come to them a little later. But he's always quite vocal about the importance of using cash, the importance of sort of transacting privately, and ways in which you can take your financial sovereignty back into your hands. And here he's suggesting that, HMRC might start clawing back money from your bank accounts. So we have to remember that the money in our bank accounts is not our money, okay? It is the government's money. It is, the Exchequer's money. And HMRC, which for the Americans or those around the rest of the world watching, HMRC is His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. It is basically our IRS. Is that a fair comparison? I'm not really sure. Basically, it's the tax man, okay? It's the tax man in the sense that that's the guy you've got to pay. I actually owe a little bit of money to HMRC right now, but we won't talk about that on our live stream. Even though I haven't been domiciled in the UK for a long time now. It's one of those things that's to leave the UK is quite challenging, and I'd happily talk about that offline with people, but not on a live stream on a Monday morning. But yeah, I just think it's important to highlight this, that the money in your bank account is not your money, and that is why we Bitcoin. Super. Okay. Hello. Good morning, Yana Led. Welcome to the live stream today. It's great to have you here. And I'm going to just try to sort out my screen a little bit. I'm sort of wondering if my computer is just slowly dying because of these live streams, or if it's a user problem. I think they use the term picnic, don't they? Problem in chair, not in computer. I am the issue here. But I found that I am completely swamping the CPU with live streaming. So if you're a techie at all, then please get in contact, and I will find out how to improve this experience, because I'm actually quite enjoying being able to talk about the stuff I'm passionate about and have a more direct connection with people that watch my stories and my videos, as it helps me just realize that there are people out there that watch this kind of thing, that chime in with it, and that sort of share it with their friends. And I want to just sort of minimize that gap a bit, and have a better connection with you guys. Okay, and the final thing I want to talk about was an article that was shared on Bloomberg. Where is it? I've lost it on Bloomberg, but we found a takeaway that was from BitGet. BitGet is like a crypto exchange, whatever. Forget about them. The main thing is that It's a pretty wild figure. Retail investors have lost $17 billion, reportedly chasing Bitcoin exposure. Notice how they didn't say the word Bitcoin, full stop. They said Bitcoin exposure, because the key thing is they're talking about how companies like Metaplanet and MicroStrategy are so attractive to would-be or potential Bitcoin investors. And people are parting with their hard-earned cash, their hard-earned money to buy these treasury stocks, when in reality, they would have been much better off simply studying and then learning about or buying Bitcoin, the thing that we all, cherish and hold dear because we know that it is hard, sound, incorruptible money. Now, these articles are a bit scary. $17 billion is a huge amount of money. That is more money than a lot of nations' GDP, and yet that is what retail is losing their money on. So a lot of people and influencers and talking heads are saying that, Bitcoin treasury companies are the next ICO boom, they're the next crypto craze, they're the next meme stonk, they're the next, meme tokens, basically. And I don't know what they are, but a lot of them are losing a lot of money, and that's kind of worrying. And I'm personally invested in one of them, the British one called BHODL, and it's not made money. It's not lost money either, but Bitcoin comparatively has gone up relative to BHODL. So joke's on me, and there's clearly custard on my face because I'm losing money on a treasury company as well. Okay, they're the sort of 4 or 5 quick news feeds I wanted to bring you up to speed with. And the final one is a very, very good news one. And it's just that the Bitcoin hash rate is continuing to do marvelous, marvelous things. Here we have the hash rate on blockchain.com. Now, don't be deceived by the name. Blockchain.com is a good source, is a verifiable source. And fun fact, I actually went to school with the founder of blockchain.com, who also went on to found Coinbase. And another number of other sort of Bitcoin and crypto entities, but then he left the Bitcoin and crypto space many years ago. But yeah, really, really, really smart guy. But he founded blockchain.com, and it still does churn out really, really good stuff, such as Bitcoin hash rate, which continues to hit insane all-time highs. So we had an all-time high on the 24th of September at 1 zettahash, which is just doesn't make any sense to me as a number. And it's not going to make sense to me for a while as a number, but that's why I bring on experts to explain what that number would mean. And that expert today is Jesse, who is a friend of mine. He's an inspiration to me as well. Just going to reply to some comments while I bring up Jesse to the stream today. Morning, Jesse. Are you ready? Just DMing him now because we were texting early this morning. And the key thing is that he's in. This is wonderful. The key thing to note with the hash rate is that it's going up and to the right, which is a good thing, which is a bad thing. It's a challenging thing, but ultimately it's something that Jesse's going to break down for us. In the meantime, I'm going to bring up some comments. So here we have one from David Inswakau, who says, "Hey Joe, I've got some altcoins that I want to move into Bitcoin. If I go over the capital gains threshold, will I have to pay capital gains tax? Good to see the live stream again." Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. I'm not a tax man. I'm not a tax advisor. And I don't know how you have those altcoins stored in whichever way you do. So I would probably seek tax advice from someone who knows about Bitcoin and or crypto. For that, I would go to the guy called The Secret Invest 2 on Twitter, who's a British guy who seems to really know his stuff when it comes to Bitcoin and tax. I would not advocate for avoiding tax or the illegal form of tax avoidance. I don't know what it's tax evasion or tax avoidance. Just don't get into trouble. It's not worth it. Keep your coins private, absolutely. But if you are, for example, in your instance, if you have some altcoins that are kept on Coinbase, then Coinbase will be reporting that to HMRC, and you could get into trouble at some point. So best to sort of toe the line in that instance and not get into trouble where possible. But in the same breath, I would say that the tax man is pretty stupid when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto stuff. So pinch of salt. And the next comment was from Seth, who said, "The treasury companies still might do well. As long as you have enough Bitcoin in cold storage, no worries." What is enough, Seth? What is enough? What is enough Bitcoin in cold storage? Because I'd love to know what that number is. For me, it's never enough. But that is a good comment. And yeah, you're right. The Bitcoin treasury companies could still do well. I don't know. Let's bring up a certain Jesse today, Good morning, Jesse. You're now live. How are you, matey?
Good morning, matey. Yeah, dude, I'm great. Thank you for doing this. You stole my
Good.
thunder, though. I was going to say you're an inspiration to me because you're still around after a long time and you in what is a very difficult business, I think.
A very difficult
Content
business.
is not easy. Not in Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's a very saturated space now as well, which is increasingly worrying. But you're on your feet. That's good to see. I should get a standing up setup as well. That's nice, man.
Yes, brother.
Yeah.
Keep the energy up.
Do you have raised ceilings? I mean, I've got to say to those watching at home, Jesse's about 6'7". Is that right? How tall are you again?
Yeah, 700 is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very, very tall man, and because of that, he clearly must have large ceilings in his house. Okay, are you in South Africa today?
I live here. I breathe here. It's where family is. It's where home is. Yes, I am, and the weather is fantastic.
Okay. Is it? Oh, mate, don't say that to our. We've got a lot of Europeans watching in drizzly, grey countries, but that's good to know.
All the more reason to visit.
I wanted to. Exactly. Well, that's one of the things we're going to touch on in today's chat. But to frame this discussion this morning, I wanted to talk with you about the hash rate because I know we hit a new all-time high towards the end of September. I want to understand like how to break down what a zeta, peta, and all these other theta hashes are, because you are, of course, a Bitcoin mining expert. And then I want to touch upon South Africa and then separately sort of Central Europe and Germany, given that you have sort of a lot of experience in these areas. But that's the sort of things I want to touch on. So we'll check those off as we go through the discussion today. But the first thing is, could you introduce yourself to our dear viewers live on Roxham and Joe Nakamoto? Who are you? What do you do? Where do you come from?
My name is Jesse. I am CEO and director of Hashrate Up, a company centered around bringing more hash rate to the continent of Africa. And I do that by selling machines, educating folks, creating content. Bitcoin mining is a very capex heavy business, and so the money has to come from somewhere. Often investors are scared about Bitcoin, scared about Africa, and scared about both. And so I'm trying to do that for a bit myself to lower that objective risk a little bit for folks.
Nice.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, you're a busy man in the space. So what's scarier, Bitcoin mining, or Africa?
That depends who you ask and where in Africa. Cape Town is not scary.
No?
Bitcoin mining is pretty scary,
Okay.
especially when it destroys all your projections all the time.
Interesting. So I think there we should probably invent a word for the phobia of Bitcoin mining, you know, like hashinophobia, or, you know, I don't know what we'd call it, time chain obia. I don't know. There's got to be someone smart in the comments.
Time chain obi. Yeah.
A bit Kenobi-esque, isn't it?
I'm good at coming up with things on the spot, but you got me there.
Okay. We'll come back to it later. And in the meantime, so you have been focusing on selling products, creating businesses, consulting, advising. Also, you wear many hats in the Bitcoin mining space, but the Bitcoin mining industry, let's call it, is its own separate sort of economy that a lot of people dip their toe into, sometimes get burnt, sometimes get scared, because it is just so complex and so deep and profound.
Yeah.
And yet you're in the deep end because you're in Africa. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of lucky in a way where I really found my niche, because I studied energy economics, and then I worked for a company that was selling solar power in Mali, in West Africa. And this issue of stranded energy and what that is, I fully understood pretty instantly. And then I understood what Bitcoin mining meant to solve that problem for the first time. But I understand, you know, people look at Bitcoin, they get busy with it. At some point, everybody's like, oh, I could mine my own Bitcoin. Then they look at hosting. Then they fall for some marketing traps where it costs maybe $55,000 to mine a Bitcoin, which is nonsense, and stuff like that. And so,
before you go any further, why is that nonsense? Because this is a classic stat that a lot of people see.
Yeah,
why is it nonsense?
Bullshit.
50,000 is
so.
Not
So when you rent a car, Joe, and you drive from Lisboa to your home country, right? What's the cost of that trip? Not just fuel, right? But you also have depreciation on the car. You have wear and tear,
insurance,
snacks, a lot of other things. So those numbers that's basically excluding the ASIC purchase.
No way.
Yeah.
So also
they're just saying, oh, you own the ASIC, and now with the energy cost, that's 55,000 a Bitcoin. But you have to buy the machine first, and you have to assume that it loses some percentage of its life over a certain period. Now you could be conservative and do 24 months or not, and call it 48 months. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, the machine is not running profitably anymore, and it has a finite lifespan. Now it's up to you to assume something there. But yeah,
what are we talking about the average? Because like, you know, a laptop, for example, nowadays it feels like you can have a laptop last like 6 years, maybe on average. That's a bit of like, you know, licking my finger, holding it to the wind. What's a Bitcoin miner sort of average lifespan? We're talking one halving, we're talking several halvings, you know, for an epoch rather.
Yeah, so the physical lifespan, that really depends on where you're running it, right? If you run it in a Dubai desert at 55 degrees ambient temperature, it's not going to last as long as it does in Norway with cold air. I would say the financial lifespan of when it becomes tricky to run it in a low risk, medium to high cost environment is probably around 3 to 4 years.
Wow, that's okay. That's pretty low. In a way, to continue with your car hire analogy, it's kind of because, you know, car rental companies do replace their cars every 3 to 4 years. Then there is a sort of a sense of let's dig deeper into that analogy. So $50,000 is like the number that's sometimes thrown around. Okay, your electricity cost and the overheads maybe is how they get up with this number. How do they come up with that? Just the electricity. Okay, that is full on regarded. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can swear on this feed, so I'm not going to. But so how do you work out the actual, like, or is it just one of those things where it's like, you know, how long is a piece of string? We can't actually define the cost.
You have to make assumptions, right? So where it comes from is a marketing trick. There's hosting companies out there, and this is partly what I set out to do with the content that I produce and with the conversations that I have. There's just a lot of money to be made from selling Bitcoin miners, and of course, you sell them more, the better the story is. That's what we call marketing. But there's a fine line, I feel like, and a lot of people tend to cross that line all the time, and so that's why I created a video that's called like, what does it actually cost to mine one Bitcoin? I don't know if it's out yet or not. But anyway,
so where will this video be? How do we find it?
Yeah, on my YouTube. It's Hash Rate Up is the YouTube channel.
Hash Rate Up. Okay.
Hash Rate Up. Yeah.
And you have a video that's going to be about how much does it cost to mine one Bitcoin,
and what the calculation is. Yeah. So I mean, for some things you have to make assumptions. But let's say you buy one Bitcoin miner and then you host it at 7.5 cents. Right. Now you have costs like repairs, and you have the machine cost in that hosting environment, right? The machine you can depreciate maybe over 3 years, right? You have to make some form of assumption to understand what your daily cost for the machine is, and you do the same with repairs. Usually you can assume like 1% of the money that you spent, or 1% of the money that you spend is you can allocate to repairs and maintenance. Now that's in a big farm. If you have like 1 or 10 machines, it's probably wise to make that 10% just in case. It's always good to be more conservative and surprise yourself to the upside, right? And so if you now say, look, if you look at the hash value or hash price in Bitcoin terms, which
let
is
me get a graph up on screen to describe that.
I can also share can I share my screen here?
I'm still not competent enough to do that, Jesse. Just you know, don't try my technical competencies.
No, look. How are we?
Can you ping me a link on Telegram? If you ping me a link on Telegram, I can bring it up.
Yeah,
but in the meantime, I'm going to look a bit regarded myself. But what's your sort of what are veritable websites that you use? So this is date.hashrateindex.com. Is that something that you'd recommend that people also treat as not gospel, but you know?
Yeah, so Laxa puts out a hash rate index website where they, you know, follow all the metrics that are relevant to Bitcoin mining. And one of them that frequently is visited by the industry participants is hash price, which basically tells you how much the hash rate you produce is worth just by seeing how much money does the Bitcoin network dish out over the course of the last 144 blocks or the last day, and then divided by the actual hash rate, the current hash rate, right? So how much money does each bit of hash rate earn per day? That's what the hash price expresses. And right now you can see on the left, it's $47 per petahash per day. It's third from there you go. Right. So that's the current value.
Of one hash.
Of one petahash per day. So if you run 5 S21s, each with 200 terahash, you have 1 petahash. So if all of those machines run for 24 hours, your revenue will be $47 right now.
Okay, that doesn't seem like a lot of money.
But if you go down, right? So my point is, if you go down and switch the denominator from USD.
Okay, where do I do this? Sorry, I'm on a very small screen here.
Further down,
it's all the way to the bottom.
Down, above the graph. It's above the graph, above the first graph. There's a little drop-down menu there.
Yeah.
There you go. So
measuring in BTC. So this is how we should be doing it.
So this is how anybody mining Bitcoin should be doing it, because really what you're interested in is how much more Bitcoin can I potentially make than I could just buy with my investment.
Oh, I see. So you're not measuring it in dollars.
That's the hurdle rate, right? So this is also why I say, if you now expand it to 5 years or 1 year, that graph.
Let's go one
good as the 1 year.
Okay.
Right. So this is the most boring chart in Bitcoin. Right here.
You're about to tell me it's the most important now, aren't you? You're about to tell me it's very important.
You were talking about volatility earlier, right?
Yeah.
And I welcome Bitcoin price going up, because it usually means machines get cheaper in Bitcoin terms. But this is a really boring graph. Every two weeks, there's an adjustment, which you can see in those 90-degree angles in the graph. Right? Those are the difficulty adjustments.
Every 2048 blocks, is it? I forget the number exactly.
Every 2014, I think.
2014 blocks. So every 2 weeks, the difficulty adjusts, which is Satoshi's marvelous invention, whereby the hash rate will have this sort of increase or this drop off based on how quick the previous 2 weeks of blocks were confirmed. If they're within this margin of, what is the margin? It's got to be on average every 10 minutes, right? So it just looks back over the past 2 weeks and says, was every block a little bit faster than 10 minutes?
There's no margin
than 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah. It's just, was it close to 10 minutes?
And so on average, if you look at since inception of the Bitcoin network, on average, difficulty has always gone up.
Yeah.
Why? Because the network keeps growing. There was never a period in Bitcoin where the hash rate over a longer period just declined.
Right.
I
mean, the all graph.
So this is, you can see the graph, right? So basically a flat line. So it's very predictable what your revenue in Bitcoin terms is. And the reason why I'm explaining this is because of the previous question, right? If you want to understand what your cost is to mine 1 Bitcoin, you have to divide your daily cost with your daily revenue. And then you know exactly what it costs, right?
Yeah. Okay. Which brings you that number. Okay.
Yeah.
That's and so what would you say to people when you see these articles saying, okay, it costs 50 grand to mine 1 Bitcoin? Obviously, you said in your intro opening line that it's nonsense, but then let's qualify it. It's nonsense. And instead, you should be looking at X, Y, and Z.
Right. So what I say to my clients, Joe, is that you need a reason to mine Bitcoin other than income.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. So what could those reasons be? If clients come to me and say, Jesse, I just want passive income, I want to buy 10 machines, just buy the Bitcoin and withdraw from that stack to have that income.
Interesting.
It's a better deal, because you're gonna get more Bitcoin most likely than if you are hosting a machine somewhere in the US. Right now, there are a few extra reasons. One extra reason could be, Jesse, I want to buy a machine because I want to learn more about Bitcoin mining itself, right? So you know that yourself, right? As soon as you bought your first bit of Bitcoin, now you're interested. Now you're like, the numbers are moving. What is this? I'm trying to figure this out. If you don't own any Bitcoin, you are less pressed to figure out what it actually is. And the same, I feel like, goes for hash rate. So if you have your own hash rate to play around with, now you're interested in understanding how it relates to the network. Why is it going up and down? Where do I get the most revenue? What is a pool? What is all of these different pool mechanisms that we have? What is the firmware? Blah, 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 blah. All the modeling that goes into it. So that's one. A really interesting one that you'll like is, I live in Zambia. I discovered this like last month when I went to the event in Zambia that we had between all the Africa Bitcoin mining folks.
Is this the Gamma? The Great
The
Mining
Gamma
Alliance, GAMA.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, I can't buy Bitcoin because if I want to send money overseas to an exchange, to my British exchange from here, the central bank in Zambia won't let me."
Right.
Okay. So I said to him, "What if you bought a machine and instead of buying Bitcoin with the money, you have a bill coming every month, a hosting bill, $200 that you need to pay to keep your machine running in a data center. Now you're mining Bitcoin and the central bank will let you probably send the funds overseas because it's an invoice from an American company and you have good reason as to why you need to send those dollars out of Zambia, right?
Right.
That's a very small one. Another one is big, the whole depreciation game in the States that people are playing, right? So you can depreciate your Bitcoin mining investment in year number one, and you can essentially acquire the Bitcoin miner for a lot cheaper because you reduce your tax bill.
Okay.
That's another reason to start mining Bitcoin. And then
not a very sexy reason as it goes, though, is it?
Well, I mean, let's say you have a tax rate of 30% in the US, right? And you have, I don't know, $100,000 profit or whatever. Now you got to pay $30,000 in taxes, and you can reduce that tax number if you make an investment with that 100,000. Right. Because now you have less taxable base. So those are all reasons. There are a couple more, but that's why I say you have to have some form of reason if you're playing the small amount of machines game to do it. Otherwise, it's financially not really worth it.
Okay, understood. What gets you most excited about Bitcoin mining generally? Like, why is this the part of the Bitcoin space that you are particularly passionate about?
Projects like Gridless, right? Those are super exciting. I feel like it just solves an age-old problem in the energy industry of what do we do with stranded power that you physically cannot send anywhere, right? Because as soon as power is generated, it needs to be consumed, right? Otherwise, there's an imbalance in the grid, and that leads to problems like we've just seen in Spain, Portugal, parts of France.
Yeah, the great blackout of 2025. I lived through it.
Right.
It was a weird time.
It's exactly that, right? There was not enough baseload generation to counterbalance a drop in generation from renewables, a very sudden drop, and then the network just crashed. But that is what excites me most. It goes on the small scale and on the big scale. And it's so Bitcoin mining is such a new, never seen before type of a load on the network, type of electricity consumer, that you can solve entirely old problems, like old problems that never have been solved before. So the gridless model is one of those. What do we do with energy that we cannot send to the grid and consume from retail or the industrial base, the consumer base that we have? If there is no external grid to send the power to, right, it has to go somewhere because the turbine has to run, the hydro turbine has to run at 50 hertz or 60 hertz in the US, and otherwise the network crashes, right? So there's two options you have without Bitcoin mining. You can let the water run past the turbine, right, and then essentially that energy is not, or the electricity is not produced, or you can sink a heating element into maybe the forebay of the hydro dam. So you basically just turn the electricity into heat to have an extra consumer just for the sake of keeping the grid stable, right? And so what operations like Gridless do is they say, look, instead of turning it into heat, let's turn it into electricity, and we give you a share of our revenue, right? And so the revolutionary fact about Bitcoin mining, that for the first time in human history, we do not need any physical infrastructure to turn electricity into something of value, is, to me, is mind-blowing, right? Because you can operate in a Kenyan jungle, you can operate in the Texas grid, it doesn't matter. You can operate in the desert in the UAE. All you need is a internet connection of some sort doesn't even have to be large fiber or anything, to connect your electricity source to a revenue source. Because think about it, right? I'll say one more sentence. If you have a gas pipeline, the pipeline is what connects the gas source to the gas market where the energy is sold. If you have a grid, it's the same thing. If you have a road where you maybe have tankers, right? That infrastructure connects the energy source to the market where it's being sold. Without that infrastructure, the energy is worthless.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin mining solves that, because you don't need any physical infrastructure.
I mean, you perfectly pitch my the video I made about gridless last year, which was all about how they are using stranded energy to. I want to show your face as well. There we go. How they used stranded energy in, where was it exactly, in Kenya? I forget, like sort of north of Nairobi. This video
far
basically
from Nairobi.
Yeah, it was like 2 hours, and then you went in the bush for a bit. But it's called Inside Africa's Secret Off-Grid Bitcoin Mines. It's basically just sort videos on my channel by the most viewed, and you can find a real deep dive into how a stranded renewable energy project, exactly what Jesse's talking about right now, plugged in Bitcoin miners to monetize that, stranded energy. And then from there, they then sort of leveled up the community's lives, they leveled up the sort of surrounding businesses' lives, and they made a profitable business. And they did it because they just had some stranded energy. So it does make you realize that, oh my God, the potential of Bitcoin mining to monetize stranded energy in places that have been left behind often by the grid is just incredible. And, it might cause for better grid balancing in the future and avoid certain things that, again, Jesse mentioned, such as the great blackout of the Iberian Peninsula in 2025 that I lived through. So yeah, click on Inside Africa's Secret Off-Grid Bitcoin Mines. System more sustainable and low. Yeah, there's all sorts of drone shots and nice things going on in it. So please do check it out. And that is totally a sell shill, but I don't care. This is my live stream.
Oh, this is your channel, brother. Don't be ashamed of shilling yourself.
There you go.
If you want to add to that, the same idea works in a country like Ethiopia, right? And this further then blows my mind. It's a country, and that's where the real power of Bitcoin mining comes in and is visible. It's a country that is historically very, very poor, third world, right? These guys have 1 gigawatt of Bitcoin mining in their country now. And they basically have an absolute abundance of hydro energy. But they don't have the transmission lines in place to send that energy from A to B, right? So even though there's tons of generation, the largest dam in Africa, largest hydro dam, there's no way of consuming that energy. And so these guys have made, I think, don't quote me on this, I think about 200 million they make a year now, just from extra revenue that Bitcoin miners bring in.
Wow.
And so if you think about this, Ethiopia is now on course, if they keep it up and they don't mess it up through regulation or turning into the next Paraguay or whatever, they are permissionlessly using their excess energy, selling it to Bitcoin miners on the spot, and they can make themselves financially independent from international funding through IMF, World Bank, or whatever, which they historically have always relied on. Why? Because they're energy rich. Usually, if you think about it, there's not one energy-rich country that's poor. It doesn't make much sense. If you have cheap energy, you have cheap manufacturing, you have cheap standards of living, everything is cheaper for you because it's the basis for everything, right? And so these guys are now saying, look, here's a tariff, very cheap. Come in, here's a license, start mining Bitcoin. Now there's about 60 exahash in the country. Still very, very, very small, right? And there's a lot more room for growth there.
Can you put that into perspective? Like how you say it's very small relative to what? Relative to what's going on in, I don't know, Finland or Texas?
The whole of Africa has, I think, 1% or less than 1% of the global network on it.
And that's with Ethiopia.
That's including Ethiopia, yeah. So it's
very
small.
Like 7% now. No, I thought it rocketed.
You might be right. I think currently it's like 60 exahash.
Okay.
And if you have, you're right on that number. So we have like 1.1 zettahash right? So Ethiopia is 60 exahash of that. So 1,100. 60 divided by 1,100 would be your number.
Okay, right. Because there's 1,000. There's 1,000 exas in a zeta.
You mentioned this before, right? So
yeah,
one hash.
I want you to help
one
to
hash.
explain it to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
One hash is one hash. One kilo hash is 1,000 hashes. Or 10 to the power of 3 hashes. 1 gigahash is 10 to the power of 9 hashes.
Right.
Right. You got kilo, mega, giga, tera. Those are sort of the increments of power of 3 steps that you go. Okay, it's just a varying amount of zeros.
Yeah. No, right? I get that. But I just still want to frame it. So you go kilo, mega, giga, tera, and then what's after tera? Because this for me is uncharted territory because I know those things from camera storage, right?
Yes, it's the same thing.
Gigabytes, terabytes.
Megabytes, gigabytes. Yeah, the perfect example. Terabytes.
Yeah.
At some point we will have petabytes. We already have. If
so
you
go
look
from
into
tera
cloud
to peta
computing.
Or peta. And then after peta, what's it?
Tera, peta, exa.
Exa, okay.
Is 10 to the power of 18. And then zeta is a number with 21 zeros. 10 to the power of 21.
Right.
Which is our favorite, of course.
Yeah. And then after zeta?
So
is that even possible? Of course it's possible.
I don't know. Yes, it is. Of course it's infinite, right? What comes after zeta?
Because that's also
it's going to take us a while.
It's also the end of the alphabet, so maybe I have to restart at A. I've got to Z.
So it's after zeta is iota.
Iota. Okay.
Yeah.
We're spelled with a Y
Rana and queta. Iota with a Y.
Okay, iota with a Y. Okay. So so people know because the Bitcoin time chain is about you can get by with a 2 terabyte hard drive now, and probably it'll last you until the next halving and a half, let's say, because right now it's over a terabyte. But do you think we're going to get into the realms of having a petabyte Bitcoin blockchain, or is that going to be in like 100 years?
Oh man, that's out of my realm of expertise. I think it has to do with the UTXO set, right? I think the more amount, I think as the Bitcoin network grows and gains adoption, as payments take place on the main chain, as so the big UTXOs get split up into smaller ones, that's where size comes from. I'm not sure if that's possible. No idea. Okay. But I mean, at some point, I guess. No, that's wrong.
It can't get there.
The Bitcoin blockchain will keep growing in size indefinitely. It'll never stop. So at some point, you will have a petahash. I mean, you were just on the mempool, right? So if you have, I think it's 2 megabit or 2 megabyte is the limit, right?
Per block. No,
so every 10. So every 10 minutes you have 4 megabytes added to the chain, theoretically.
You don't need to do the maths right now. We're gonna have a lot of people dropping off the live stream, I'm sure.
There you go.
Or they're going to be people working it out at home. But yes, in theory, I mean, we won't be alive. I think the key thing to say is that we won't be alive to experience this. This is a long ways away, unless we get some crazy soft fork in the future where you can put gigantic sizes of data on the blockchain, which would be interesting. But yeah, whereas A in the comments he was doing some maths earlier because I wanted to change the topic of conversation. We've covered, of course, Bitcoin mining in Africa, the complexities of Bitcoin mining, and terminology in Bitcoin mining. This is all just to show that Bitcoin mining is its own industry, it's its own economy, it's its own bloody language. But one thing that's really common at the moment and popular, bit of a zeitgeist thing, is the BitAxe and solo mining. And A was doing some maths in the comments, and he has suggested, I'm going to bring up both comments, A, don't worry. But he suggested that the solo BitAxe odds, there we go. Jesse is now modeling a BitAxe. So he's got it plugged in at home, connected to Wi-Fi, I guess, is it? Yeah?
Connected to Wi-Fi. There's no other way. Yep.
There's no other way. Okay. Saying the solo BitAxe odds are 1 in. I'll fill in that in later. And the global hash rate is this that you can see on screen. I can't actually see because my screen is so small. He then corrected it and said that the odds of a BitAxe solo mining, is 1 in 2 billion, which is the equivalent of the national lottery in the UK, not just getting it 1 win, but getting 22 lottery wins in a row. So we are talking infinitesimally small odds. you know, there's more odds of you getting like being in like several plane accidents, I think, than mining a Bitcoin block.
So I did the math with ChatGPT at 1 zettahash
Oh yeah,
with a BitX, and the expected time to find one block, according to ChatGPT, is 19,000 years.
19,000 years.
So really, 19,000 years. So really, this is a conversation starter, right? Conversation starter.
Yeah.
So when I have people over,
Yeah.
I put this somewhere. If I want to talk about Bitcoin mining, I put this somewhere prominent where people are like, "Ah, what is that?" And then it's like, "Yeah, it's a Bitcoin miner." And off you
So
go.
it's
and
my
you have a
1 in
conversation.
19,000 year chance of becoming very rich.
Yes.
And then, you know, the conversation
Exactly.
flows. Interesting.
Exactly.
So how much is the BitX, and is that worth it as a conversation starter?
It's a gimmick. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like 200. I think around 2 to 250 euros. There's different versions of the same thing. People then advertise, "Oh, it adds to the diversification of the network." That's all nonsense. Like this hash rate, nobody cares about. You know.
Yeah. And
But
can it only
it
solo
definitely
mine,
is
or
worth.
can you point it to a pool, or
No,
is it not even worth it?
So you want to know my hack?
Yeah.
So I have a actual miner running in a data center, one of the regular ones, an S21 Pro, and so I send that hash rate to a pool.
Okay.
And usually on the pool you have like a minimum threshold for payouts. And if you connected this thing to one of those pools where you have a threshold, you will most likely never reach that threshold.
Right. Okay.
But if you now couple this hash rate together with your big miner, you technically get all the rewards from this thing as well.
And that is a cent every day or something like that, or less?
It's very negligible. It's way less than a cent.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I mean, when you look at the BitX, you realize just how clever those guys were in marketing it, because it did feel like there was a moment where everyone had to have a BitX, a bit like how everyone had to have a block clock, or everyone had to have a nerd miner.
You run your own node of 2020 whatever.
Yeah.
Which we still should be doing, right? But it's the same. There was sort of this hype that I remember where everybody bought a Raspberry Pi and built a Raspberry Blitz at home. Or the block clock, all of those things I would put in the same category. This is cool because it technically does the exact same thing as a regular miner, right?
Yeah.
It's just that this thing,
Jesse's currently bringing over something. Oh, it's an S19. S9.
It's S9. Yeah, I can
S9,
use in winter to heat my feet, whereas this thing I cannot.
Yeah. But do you actually plug that in and heat your feet with it, even though it's incredibly loud, or do you wear,
I heat my office.
Okay.
So I heat the office in winter because everything is electric heating here anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm not, being in the field that I'm in, I'm not going to just plug in an electric radiator. I don't mind the sound, right? I got my office. I just close all the windows, all the doors, plug that thing in for an hour or so, and then it's nice and toasty in here.
Really? And that's so. Would you judge a Bitcoin mining company? Say you had a meeting with a Bitcoin mining CEO, and you walked into his office, and he had one of those Dyson heaters. Would you be like, mate, like,
well,
business deal?
I would hope he has a heat bit, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Or that thing looks good, purifies the air, right? Or no, what's the thing called that you modeled in your YouTube?
Heat bit. Yeah, so heat bit's great. Right. But like for the sake of balance and not being completely biased to the company that I do have shares in, there is also 21 Energy have a big fat black Bitcoin mining device that I've seen in person, and is like, that's like, I think for me that screams I'm a man. You know, it's like but it's a cool product.
So they have other cool, like just on that topic. So it's Austrian guys. So it's called the Ofen, right? So or the oven in English. So there's so many cool applications, right? Where they identified that building sites had access to free power for the containers, and all the heat in those building containers, like on a building site, you know, those like whatever containers that people have lunch in when they're on the
like shipping containers site. Basically.
Yeah. They all have radiators that are electric, and so these guys just came up with a product that that did the same thing but mined Bitcoin. There's also a company called Hestia. It's a French company, and they have a smart home heating device. Right?
Really?
On their website, nothing about Bitcoin. Nothing at all. But under the hood, it's just Bitcoin mining chips. and it's then sold as this smart home heating system.
That's hilarious.
That looks very trendy. Has a great app to go with it.
You've used it? Or are you familiar with it?
Yeah. No, I'm not. No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at their website, and when I look at it, I realize, that is 100% a Bitcoin mining shipping container. And then I look at the photos of the team, and the CEO has a picture in front of a bunch of S9s plugged in with their Ethernet cables and all that. So it's like,
Yep.
You're right. There is no mention of Bitcoin. And that's, okay. Oh, no, it says as part of the team's experience, some of them have been involved in Bitcoin since, 2015, 2016, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't say the word.
Anyway, so it's just a company using. There's two Hestias too, but they're using very, very old chips that are very, very cheap. To create that heat inside. It's just a great product.
Yeah, sure. It's wild. I think we are still scratching the surface of what Bitcoin heating is going to do to an already sort of rubbish and rather inefficient industry. The idea we buy electric heat, it's plugged into the wall to turn electric heat into heat. It's I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit strange to me.
You're turning the highest form of energy that we have, electricity, right? The highest grade of energy into the lowest grade.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. And you cannot get back, right? You need enormous amount of energy to get back from heat into electricity, which is why nobody does it. But I agree. I mean, if you look at Finland, that's scratching the surface of what's possible.
Oh yeah, entire towns being heated
with Bitcoin miners. Yeah,
it's just wild. And in the meantime, the UK is trying to ban at home coal and log sort of furnaces and stoves and the old-fashioned way that we'd heat our homes. They're trying to ban that. So yeah, we live in very strange times, and hopefully Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining can restore some sort of balance to this approach to how we stay sane over the winter.
It gives me a lot of steadiness in my everyday, for sure. As volatile as Bitcoin is.
Well, there you go. That harks back to the point I was making right at the start of the show today. Okay, we've covered Bitcoin mining at home. I wanted to now ask you about two different perspectives. Firstly, South Africa. What's cracking in South Africa right now, and how's the Bitcoin scene? Because from the way I see it, from a foreigner looking in, who's quite excited about South Africa, it's one of my favorite sort of African countries. It does look like you can live on Bitcoin pretty much day to day.
For sure.
Now.
Yeah.
I mean, you live on a Bitcoin. I don't know what you're comfortable saying publicly. So, what's your approach to Bitcoin, Jesse, in South Africa?
I don't own any. So it's funny, right? So when I got here, I tell this story all the time. When I got here, I could not open a bank account without a visa. Right. This is a society where the biggest bill is a 200 Rand bill, which is about $5-6, and it's a cashless society, right? So to partake in everyday life without having to carry thick amounts or thick wads of cash around you with you all the time, which you don't want to do. Because of the crime, is difficult. So 3 years ago when I came here, it took me about 1 year to get a visa because this country needs its time in many things. And so technically I did not have access to any digital banking or digital money infrastructure. And so the fact that I could go to then already Pick and pay for my rates and taxes, my groceries, my electricity, my water, my everything is mind-blowing already. Then it's just insane how much value there is to someone in a situation like me.
And just to explain to people, Pick and Pay is a massive sort of supermarket chain equivalent to like Carrefour or I don't know, Auchan or Tesco's or Walmart. But in South Africa, you have that added bonus of you can pay your utility bills at the counters, right? Or at Pick and Pay. They've got different names, right? Pick and Pay Electronics, Pick and Pay Commerce. And you were able
something
to do
like this.
What's that?
This is what you get every month. Okay. This is your rates and taxes bill where you pay your refuse, your sewage, like your water, your property rates, and all of that stuff.
Oh, right. And so you were paying that in Bitcoin?
Yeah, I needed to, right? So I could go to Pick and Pay with this, and they would scan it, ask me for the money, and I'll go, please give me a QR code scanner or QR code payment. Because this is the thing. Like, I think your previous interview guest that you had on also talked about South Africa a bit.
Yeah, Gareth.
And they hinted at the fact as well where this country is because it's very cashless, there's a big push for digitalization of the banking system and payments, right?
Yeah.
So there's great apps. These banks have good apps that work well. There's a SnapScan, there's a Zapper, which you can download on your phone. Now, if you want to sell coffee in the park, you just pop up your SnapScan QR code and people can scan that. Here you have parking guards, that help you find, even if the spot is this wide, they will help you find the right way to get into the parking spot. And they will have a QR code around their neck most often that you can pay them with, because they know if they rely on cash, they make a lot less money. And so fast forward to today, Money Badger, the company that originally made this pick and pay option possible, has now integrated Zapper as well. So wherever you see a Zapper, which is very big here, QR code, you can pay that with Bitcoin. Or with the Money Badger app. What happens in the background is you basically scan the code with the Money Badger app. It creates a Lightning invoice. You send the sats to Money Badger, and Money Badger pays whoever the recipient is. So the recipient doesn't receive sats, but me as a Bitcoin person can now virtually pay for everything with Lightning, right? And so all the orange pilling that I've been doing now changes, right? Previously, the conversation would be, oh yeah, I can pay you in Bitcoin. And then, okay, and then what do I do with it? Okay, yeah, then you can go to Pick and Pay and spend it. Or to you can order pizza at Butler's, which I think you have done before.
I have, yeah.
I feel so well when you were here. I remember that. And so those are sort of the two off-ramps, right? But for Bitcoin to become money, you need more off-ramps than that. You need Bitcoin to be spendable wherever people want to spend it, right? Imagine your money only worked in 2 shops. You didn't really want to accept it, would you, right? So and this is what this changes. Now I can go to anybody and say, look, I'll pay you in Bitcoin. They'll be like, okay, what do I do with it? And then I tell them, okay, you can pay anywhere there's a Zapper QR code. You can spend the money. Now that becomes a desirable form of money.
Yeah. I mean, just look at Cape Town, right? You can't see the words Cape Town anymore because it's covered in pins from the Bitcoin Money Badger map. Sorry. So, let's just click on a random one. You've got a ShopRite, which is another supermarket chain. You've got Pick and Pay Express, which is smaller Pick and Pay, another Pick and Pay, Checkers FX, that's a foreign currency exchange. Clicks, I guess that's tech, something or other. Loads of, I mean, Pick and Pays are everywhere. I mean, I forget
all these chains. It's all these chains. It's engines, the petrol station chains. It's everywhere. Yeah. It's everywhere. Even if I go to the and this is the fun fact, right? If I go to a shopping center and I have to pay for my parking ticket,
right?
You can do that through Zapper, right? Which is more convenient than standing in line at the booth. Right? Because then there's 5 people waiting, somebody's fiddling with their bill, doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. It takes time. You just want to leave, right? So what I do is I scan the QR code that's on my parking ticket, and then I just go. Now, beforehand, I needed to wait for the SnapScan app, for the Zapper app. I needed to wait until this transaction is through, blah, 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 right? Scanning the QR code and paying with Lightning is so much faster.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Then the credit card transaction being processed in the background for 50 cents or 50 pence or whatever, right? So it actually is now better functioning too. It's not just better money; it also works quicker.
It deserves a Bitcoin video, doesn't it? I need to come out to South Africa and demonstrate just how easy it is, because I think a lot of people just don't realize how far advanced certain countries have become with their Bitcoin approach, and people like you have been living on Bitcoin for years now.
It's such a windfall for me because South Africa is becoming the biggest Bitcoin country in the world.
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
Yeah. Move over, Bhutan. Forget El Salvador. It's South Africa
on payments. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm mining Bitcoin in Nigeria, and then think about this, right? I'm mining Bitcoin in Nigeria to a wallet. It lands, it automatically gets transferred into my Lightning wallet, and then I can go spend the money. It's mind-blowing to me.
It is a little bit tax me if you can as well.
Of course, yeah. I mean, look, hey, if the way I approach it is I think I have the Peter Cormack approach.
Okay.
If they are able to track what I should be paying in taxes,
Yeah.
all the power to you.
Okay.
You've earned it, but I'm not going to sit down and do that work. I'd rather pay the bill, right? So if they can come up with how much I earn and how much I owe to the taxman, all good. They deserve it. That's how I see it.
Meanwhile, A brings up in the comments that it looks like the FCA in the UK is making it infeasible to accept and even hold small Bitcoin payments as a merchant. Yes, there were a couple of stories about this last week, actually. Some heartbreaking stories of, I think it was a pub in the Northeast that was looking to accept Bitcoin, and then they took to the advisors, and then eventually they were sort of slowly discouraged from accepting Bitcoin and holding it in particular. A then goes on to say that to follow the rules, merchants would need to use a third-party service. Yeah, it's crazy when you consider how advanced, say, South Africa is when it comes to Bitcoin, or Bhutan, or El Salvador, or Portugal, or lots of other spots.
So,
and then the UK is just.
I think what it comes down to, and this is just a thought from the last person you interviewed, because I was watching that, as you remember, which is why I'm here today, because I was like, I also want to be on the show. It's a bit of a ask for forgiveness rather than ask for permission mentality. There's a lot of entrepreneurship here. The whole tax question is like everybody. It's morally expected in some cases that you pay as little as possible in taxes because people know where it goes to, right? So
say that again. It is morally accepted.
The conversations I have with other entrepreneurs and founders who have South African businesses, they are all about making sure they don't pay any tax because they know where it's going and they know it's misused. Meanwhile, in like remote parts of South Africa where the government has completely disbanded and left, stole all the money and left, right? People, and this goes to the whole who's going to build the roads example, people join together that live there and say, okay, we need to fix these potholes.
Yeah.
Everybody puts money in the middle, the job gets done, and whatever is not used gets dished out again, right? And the problem is solved. And so it's that kind of mentality that I think will sort of fuel that Bitcoin payments growth, because the advantages cannot be overstated. It's so glaringly obvious, download an app, you accept Bitcoin, and you spend it, and nobody knows about it. Like, what?
But Jesse, what do you say to people like A in the comments who are, to some extent, that's a struggle? He's reflecting a struggle that a lot of Bitcoin merchants go through in the UK. Like, should you just accept Bitcoin anyway and ask for forgiveness rather than permission? Just slap up the sticker and try to take Bitcoin and see what happens? Or
it's a risk question. I mean, what is the punishment if they do catch you? That's the question. Like, what's the risk reward?
You can be sent into jail for tweeting nowadays in the UK. So
and that's why I'm saying then it's probably not a very wise idea, But it just is one of those things that makes a location for business in future as Bitcoin growth happens unattractive. Like the whole I'll give you another example. So in A's example, I probably would adhere to the rules, especially if I have family or people that depend on me, and not fuck around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at the travel rule. Right. I have a business in the EU, and every payment that comes in that's not, so I use an exchange, and that exchange will ask me, where does the payment come from? Does it come from a wallet that I control or not? Right. And if it's clients paying me, then I don't control that. Sorry, phone. I don't control that wallet, and I have to give them all the details. So I have to give them all the details of the person who sent the money for them to be able to refund it. But I mean, of course, I'm going to adhere to that rule because I don't want EU regulation to come after my business. But I'm going to work around it, Then I accept payments maybe allegedly on my private wallet, and then I send them from there. And it's just that sort of example tells me that the enforcement of the rule is super, super difficult, especially the more people do it. Imagine all the business owners join together at some point when Bitcoin is like a globally unanimous thing, and everybody in the world is accepting it as payment, but they cannot because of some ancient regulation. Them just doing it, what's going to happen, right? If it's just A in the comments, they're going to come after you. They're going to make an example out of you, make sure that that doesn't happen again. But if, let's say, 100,000 merchants in the UK do it, then all these guys are going to go to prison for accepting a payment, which is like a very common, normal thing throughout the world.
This is it. I think that's the nail on the head there. The idea that if we do build this British Bitcoin community, we keep it going. There are certain people in the comments, Zanoni Snowflake, for example, who mentions, the idea of leaving the UK as one, but there's also the idea of just building this sort of stronger, better Bitcoin community. And if there are hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin merchants, then I'm sorry, HMRC, but good luck tracking it. Likewise, if we do get millions of Bitcoin payments per day, I mean, again, A brings up that all my Bitcoin is from a KYC exchange and tracked by HMRC. That is, that's absolutely fine. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You will just have to pay some tax on it if and when you go to sell over the capital gains threshold. In the meantime, you could start buying non-KYC Bitcoin from trusted people. You go to a meetup a couple of times, you get to know the sense of a person.
Peach.
Peach is amazing for this. Peach is a no KYC Bitcoin service that works very, very well. You've got HODL, you've got RoboSats, you have, what else do you have? Personally, I mean, I don't use Peach. I would recommend Peach to certain people, as I think it's a very, very good service.
Bisq, I remember using Bisq.
I remember Bisq as well,
fantastic.
But
it closes the loop.
Yeah,
BISQ. Sorry, Joe. There's a bit of lag between South Africa and Portugal, so I keep interrupting you. Sorry for that.
No, it's fine.
But this kind of closes the loop, right? It's another reason why people come to me and want to start mining Bitcoin, because they want KYC free sats.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Right, so there's an extra value there. So what I would say to A is maybe to flip a finger, buy some machines with the company profits, reduce the tax you need to pay to the government by depreciating the asset as a business expense, and then mining Bitcoin to the wrong wallet.
Whoops. Okay.
Oops. Sorry, guys. Made a mistake.
It's true. There is an element of that. I mean, I've left the UK twice in my sort of professional career. And the first time I left the UK, I rang up HMRC and said, hello, I'm going to be working this job abroad. At the time, I was 23 or 24 years old, and I was going to work in Serbia. And they basically said, hello, like, how much do you earn right now? And I was like, I think I earn like £27,000 per year. It was not a big salary, but whatever. Like, I'm early in my career. And they were like, okay, how much money do you think you owe? And I was like, I don't know, a couple of £1,000. And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. I was like, what? And they're like, what do you expect to earn in your 40s? And I was like, I want to earn £300,000 a year minimum. I want to earn so much money, because that was the optic I was in back then, right? And they were like, okay, great, we'll get you then. And that was how they left the call. They basically said,
we will get you then.
We will get you then. I was not interesting to them on £27,000 a year, but I will be very interesting to them if I earn £300,000 a year, which
and that's and that's to the earlier point, right? If you hold, I don't know, a couple grand worth of Bitcoin on a wallet as a company, like, they're not going to send you to prison for that, right? It's very, very unlikely. And if we are at a point where that amount of Bitcoin is actually worth hundreds of thousands, then most likely Bitcoin adoption around the world will have grown a lot, to the extent where enforcing a rule like that is probably shooting yourself in the leg, as a nation.
Not just in the foot, in the entire leg. You've blown it off.
Shoot it off.
Jesse, I really hate to bring this conversation to a close. However, I've only got the live stream until past, and we've actually gone a little bit over. But that's my fault, just because I'm still a headless chicken on this live stream. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone that tuned in the comments, to Seth, to A, to Queen, to Zanoni Snowflake. I will be here tomorrow at 11 a.m. and 10 a.m. British time, GMT. The clocks do go forward in 2 weeks, I believe, in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's going to be absolute chaos with all of these companies, which are founded in Argentina with employees in Europe, Asia, US, Canada, blah, blah, blah. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But until then,
no meetings during that week.
Well, exactly right. That's the perfect thing. So the live stream will be chaotic as usual. But Jesse, to follow you, people need to check out at #HashRateUp. So at #HashRateUp. That's on all your usual social media platforms, but YouTube is where you'll get this deep dive into what is hash price. You know, what is the real cost of mining a Bitcoin? Sorry, that was the name of the video.
Yeah, that's the next one, exactly. So anybody, I mean, you inspire me to do something like this myself and have people answer, or people come in and answer their questions live. But yeah, I usually make content interviews from the industry for the industry, right? But I realize a lot of my viewers don't have the fundamental knowledge that you need to understand many of the things that we talk about. So I decided to put out HashRateUp focus episodes where it's just 10-minute videos focused on one example, like Bitcoin mining on solar, good or not, stuff like that. Yeah, but hashrateup.com is a website. @HashRateUp is the YouTube, and then I have a personal Twitter as well, which is JESSE Jesse _HODL,
which spells HODL, which
HODL.
would all HODL and spending and all the rest of them. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Yeah, check out Jesse's work. And is mining on solar panels a good idea? Absolutely fucking not. That's your answer right there. I'm kidding. You need to go check out Jesse's video to understand it better. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to Roxxon for hosting us, one of the best places to catch live Bitcoin and global news all around, and keep stacking sats, do what you love, and saving Bitcoin. Thanks so much, guys. Ending the live stream around about now. Ciao.